Hey, and joining me from Autoline Live at the floor of the Washington, D.C. Auto Show is Jake Jones, the Executive Director of External Affairs and Public Policy for Daimler. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, John. I appreciate being here.
Okay, so what does that mean, External Affairs and Public Policy?
Well, this is always, what really is a title? I'd like to think that it means do a variety of different things for the company. What it primarily means is do the government affairs and all the interactions with the NGOs as well. So I'm responsible for all of that in North America, for all the business units, not just the Mercedes-Benz passenger cars, but also for the truck guys as well.
Oh, all of Daimler.
Absolutely.
So what's hot on your agenda right now? We've been talking post-2017 CAFE and greenhouse gases and distracted driving and what?
And it seems like it's endless, doesn't it? I thought that actually we were all so happy to get through this economic crisis and that we were going to come into 2011 with a little bit of breathing room, and all of a sudden it's been as busy as ever, just even from the start. So you've definitely hit on all of the issues I think that are key for us. And the fuel economy issues, 2017 to 2025 for passenger cars are big ones for us, but for on the truck side too. We've got new rules coming into place 2014 to 2018, so we're thinking about those.
Are these the first fuel economy rules for heavy trucks?
Absolutely, and so, that's always hard to know. How do you even measure that? Because with truck, we can make the truck, but we don't make the trailer. And no one's ever been in the business of trying to figure this one out. So this is going to be a challenge for us, but we're looking forward to whatever the standards are because we think that we're the market leader. But I tell you, John, it's interesting. The thing that actually has kept me the most busy the beginning of the year is that we're actually celebrating our anniversary of the invention of the automobile. 125 years.
That's an astonishing fact. 125 years ago.
Absolutely amazing, isn't it? Bertha Benz, actually, with her two sons, went into the garage and took out this invention her husband Carl Benz had created and went on a secret drive. Along the way, she had to stop at the cobbler to get new leather for the brakes, and she went to the drugstore to get new gasoline for this car.
Because people don't know that, but that's where you bought gasoline way back when.
That's exactly right.
At drugstores or hardware stores?
Right, it's amazing. And so it's funny that now we're actually entering a phase where now we're starting to think again of all this potential alternative technology. We're actually going to be the infrastructure, we're going to be the fueling stations, where are we going to do this in the world of the future? So I imagine Walmart, for example, will play a major role, and a lot of us may end up going to Walmart to get whatever this fuel, this hydrogen is, in our case, what we believe is ultimate, or may go to Walmart to get your electricity, charge a car. The world's completely changing, 125 years, and look where we are now.
So is Daimler throwing a big birthday bash for itself?
We are throwing a big birthday bash in Germany on Saturday with the Chancellor Merkel.
This coming Saturday?
This coming Saturday.
Oh my gosh.
And so this is a big deal for us. Happy birthday, Daimler. It's amazing to think, though, how things have changed over these 125 years. And if just walking around the show now, just to get the feel of all the technology that's being introduced by all the companies. I mean, the companies really are making the investment to introduce the technology to get us to the next level. The question is whether or not the infrastructure is going to be there and whether or not the customers are going to accept it. I think that's the part we're uncertain about.
Well, that's a big uncertainty right there, because if you're talking hydrogen, for example, we need a whole new hydrogen infrastructure.
That's exactly right. I mean, the beauty now is that if you walk out of your house, within a 7-mile radius of your house, you know that you can go to a gas station. And so even when you chance it, you're a little bit low on fuel, you think, okay, I'm going to pass a gas station, I can find something. And even on the highways, you know that every 20 to 30 miles, you're actually going to find a fueling station. If all of a sudden now we're saying to people, here's the new technology, the technology of the future, the ones that are going to allow you to drive with zero emissions so that you're actually doing the right thing for the environment, but at the same time you maintain your mobility. People still want that comfort to know that if I'm running a little low on hydrogen, where do I find this stuff? And what is this thing that I'm not familiar with? And so it's real challenges for us.
Well, it's a challenge for society in general. We had Pat Davis on here earlier from the Department of Energy, and he was saying, look, we can't go out and build a whole hydrogen infrastructure and a whole new electrical grid and an ethanol or biofuel one and fill in the blank. It's what he's saying is at some point the market's got to decide which way are we going to go.
And that's sort of the challenge, though, is that for companies this is no small feat to invest, because all of us are operating from the assumption that we want to help governments achieve their goals, which is the 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. So if you work backwards from that, that means that by 2035, you need to have this technology that's the answer in place in the market. And it needs to be 100% of your sales by 2035. So we've got to make some huge bets on where things are going now with the hope that it will actually be accepted and that the government will be a partner and say, okay, we're going to help you along the way. And so we've asked the government not to pick winners and losers. Like, for example, I know there's lots of strong sentiments about plug-in hybrids, for example. Everyone thinks that that's the answer, but that's only part of the answer. There are lots of other things that we need to do along the way. And so we would hope that the government would be supportive to say, let 1,000 flowers bloom. And that the government is going to help create incentives so that the market can work. And that's all we ask.
But the Obama administration, you heard the president 2 nights ago say, we want 1 million electrics on the road in 4 years. So, I mean, it seems like they're picking their target.
They are picking target, and in the near term, it may be easier, particularly if you see the number of companies that are introducing battery electric vehicles and plug-in vehicles to the market in the near term. It may be easier to get that volume in the electric vehicle segment as opposed to for fuel cell vehicles. But are battery electric vehicles, are they the absolute answer to the future? I'm not sure. I mean, Americans have, which I sort of alluded to with this fuel thing, have a real issue with range anxiety. And are you really going to buy a vehicle that gets you 40 miles or even 100 miles on a single charge, but you know that that's it? What does that mean for trips to New York, which is 220 miles? Do you drive to New York and you lay over for 4 hours, you lay over 8 hours, you lay over overnight to allow your cars to charge and then continue on to New York? It really, battery electric is most likely a solution for urban environments. Where
are you going to plug in?
Exactly, if you live in an apartment.
Right.
I mean, there's so many challenges. For example, we know that increasingly the world is becoming more urbanized. Even in Washington, D.C., which is a very surprising place, we've found that 27% of people don't even own an automobile. So if we want to reach that market of people who are moving in urban areas, live in apartments, have no real way of charging their vehicle, we've got to be prepared to deal with some of these special challenges. And so battery electric, I think, is part of the solution, but it obviously isn't the ultimate solution. And so that's why we've got to be prepared to do a whole range of different things. And I'll add to that, for the foreseeable future, I think we've had hybrids introduced in the market for more than 10 years now, and they're still about 3% of the market, that's it. So it shows that unlike electronics, like the iPhone, for example, or your iPad, for example, where you had this rapid adoption in the market, is not exactly the same with vehicles. It takes much longer for the generations of new technology.
Absolutely. Well, as you know, the average car today is $30,000. That's not like the same as spending a couple of $100 on a phone.
That's exactly right. I would agree. And so there's always sort of this assumption, I think, on the part of people who just say, tell the industry to do more, do more, do more, the technology will be accepted. There's sort of this assumption that it's exactly the same as spending a few $100s on a phone. But in reality, you're right, this is a major purchase for most people. Second to their education and their home, probably the most expensive purchase they're going to make during the course of their lives. Right. So it's a serious investment.
Okay, what else? What else are you working on these days?
Well, I think distracted driving, you're absolutely right.
Big one, right.
It's a big, big issue. It never goes away, and we all know that it's the responsibility of all of us. We think we have something unique that we do, our company.
What's that?
The Mercedes-Benz Driving Academy.
Amen.
That we're working to launch in the U.S.
i.e. training people.
Exactly, and starting with young people, training them about the responsibility that they have, not only as the driver, but also as the passenger in the car. Because oftentimes, young people going back and forth between sporting events or with their friends in the car, there's actually not this sort of responsibility around the car saying, let's help this driver concentrate on what he's doing. And so that's the kind of thing we want to teach young people early too, that everyone has a responsibility to make sure that they're being safe.
How's this program work?
And so this is an academy that we run. It's like our own driving school. We've launched a pilot in London. We're now talking to officials in California. Our hope is to launch this new pilot program in California this year in the U.S. as well.
So, okay, I'm a 16-year-old. How do I get involved in it?
And you're a 16-year-old, and hopefully we can even catch you even before you're 16, maybe even 14 when you're just starting to think about driving. And so we're actually going to engage through the PTA and through schools to try and get parents to sign their kids up for a driving school, where you come on the weekend and we put you on a closed track and we teach you about the responsibilities of driving a vehicle, but we also teach you about the distractions that could exist and how do you respond to those, to teach people early to be responsible.
Driving skills as well. I mean, I've always said
driving on ice and all those things that you think about, because most times you take driving school, they teach you how to signal to change lanes, how to make lefts, you know, how to stop, but they don't teach you really how to respond to a situation if something runs into the road in front of you, sort of how to respond to ice and your car starts to skid. Those kind of things that some schools teach and we feel is absolutely essential. But we also want to get at this whole idea of being responsible young drivers early. And we think that that's the key. And that's something that's new and unique. And I think it's something that's consistent with us as Mercedes-Benz.
No, I love what you're saying here, because, you know, when I got my driver's license, I never drove at night. I never drove in rush hour traffic, never drove on the freeway, never drove in snow and ice. But they said, hey, you guessed right on enough questions, you got a license.
So you're qualified. You're very qualified. And see, I learned to drive in a rural area. And so for me, it was very different. As long as we could avoid the tractors, we were good. But there was never really any skill. Absolutely, I agree. And this is what we got to start thinking about doing in the future.
Well, Jake Jones, that's fantastic to hear about. And thanks so much for stopping by and bringing us up to speed. Really, really enjoyed it.
Thanks, John.
Good deal.
AutoLine Live from the Washington, D.C. Auto Show is brought to you by our Inner Circle sponsor, Bosch, invented for life, and also by Dow Automotive Systems, innovations for clean powertrain solutions, and by the Steel Market Development Institute, automotive steel technologies powered by strength, fueled by innovation.